Well, the Jehovah's Witnesses came to my door this morning being all negative about life. My camera cuts off during the best part, unfortunately, but basically what happened was I confessed to them that I'm an ex-JW, and they immediately assumed that I'd been disfellowshipped and asked how long ago I was disfellowshipped. And I said I wasn't disfellowshipped. Why would you assume that? I found out about your corruption and I left on my own. So they were very uncomfortable after finding out that I'm an apostate, obviously. And they started to try to leave. And while we were still in the middle of a good conversation that had been going on for about 15 minutes, and then they wanted to leave. So this is a very good example of cult ways a cult works. So I hope you enjoy this video. Please check out the other video. I'll post the link in the description below, because right after they left, I went door to door to my neighbors, taking them information on jwfacts.com. So enjoy.
Jesus Christ.
Hi, how are y'all?
All right, fine. How you doing?
Good. Y'all Latter-day?
No, we're Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I see you got your Texas Tech.
Yes, sir.
They won last night.
Oh, did they? Wow. No, I didn't know. I'm not real into. I'm not real into basketball. Yeah.
But you're glad, though, ain't you?
What's that?
They won last night.
Oh, yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. I don't
But anyway, y'all are welcome to come.
Okay. Yeah.
And this special talk that's coming up, if there was a time for people to concentrate on Christ, is now. Because there's so much going on.
So much going on?
Yeah, so much happening in the world. And so that should make people reflect. So many murders and shootings and things like that. And who can you turn to?
Do you think it's worse or more like social media and technology has gotten better? You know?
Well, it's both, but it's worse.
It's worse.
Because the Bible prophesied in the last days that there will be nations against nations, kingdoms against kingdoms, and that there will be earthquakes. Look at California. They was dying from a drought, and now they are fishing them out of the water. It's flooding, and mudslides, and then earthquakes. And if you look at all the major disasters, each year, Betty, you have your Bible? Just want to read just one scripture to you.
Yeah, because I mean, like in my history class, things were so much worse back then. You know, like life expectancy has gotten longer. There's vaccines, so that cut out a lot of deaths from, dying from diseases, smallpox,
But did you know it's more people? It's over 52,000 people die from the flu.
From the flu, yes. And it used to be worse.
Major diseases.
The flu back during the war, it was really bad.
Spanish influenza.
But then it came to a time where you didn't hear that much about the flu. But now, this year, the vaccine is not even working that well.
But I don't think it's ever really worked, because it's always just been kind of a hit or miss thing, because it changes a lot.
But you said that Jesus was the authority on things, because it says this in Matthew, the 24th chapter. It brings this particular point out about what will happen in the last days. It says right here, Jesus answered and he said to them, look out that nobody mislead you. For many will come on the basis of my name saying that I am Christ. But he also goes on to tell us nations will rise against nations, kingdoms against kingdoms. There will be earthquakes in one place after another. And says this is the beginning of the pains of distress. So there's a greater fulfillment of what the Bible said, because Jesus can look into the future, even though we have technology, but we don't know what's going to happen a week from now. We can speculate, but only God knows what the future holds for us. And that's the reason why we're inviting people to
So Jesus can look into the future?
Yeah.
But I thought the Bible said that even the Son, God's Son, didn't know when the end was.
No, he said he didn't know the day or the hour,
Yeah.
but that didn't mean that he didn't know what would happen in the future. In verse 36, I know what you're talking about. It says, concerning that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, not even the Son of Man, but the Father only. And so Jehovah God knows, but Jesus knew what would happen in the future. But at that time, he didn't know when the time would end, but all at the same time, he knew what would happen in the future.
And we can see, looking at the world events now, you know, yes, it's true, they had like bad hurricanes, but not to the extent that they're having now. They had earthquakes, but not to the extent that they're having them now.
So how do you, what kind of like scientific evidence do you have about how that it seems worse now than it was back then? I guess.
Well, we can look at the attitude of people. I know I'm quite a bit older. You're young enough to be my daughter, but I know when I was growing up and going to school, if two kids got into it, it was a fist fight. Mm-hmm. No one would go home and get a gun and start shooting, each other or shooting at each other or just killing whole souls. Like
the wild, probably, the Wild West, they used to do that, right? They had their gun shootouts and stuff.
The technology wasn't that advanced. They had guns and things was bad, like Jesse James. But look at the mass killings that goes on.
Right, because the technology wasn't that bad. So if it was that bad, it probably wouldn't.
No, even though they didn't have the technology, but it just wasn't that bad. It's more on a massive scale. Say one school, 18 get killed, 40 wounded, and then you go the next day, somebody else get killed, policeman killed somebody, and it's just one thing after another. And so it's worse now than it ever has been.
And it's not just here in the States either. We began to see that worldwide.
Well, have y'all ever looked into like the Dark Ages? I mean, people used to get beheaded. They used to get killed for everything. Mm-hmm. Oh, and then even in Mexico, like the Mayan cultures. I just came back from there. They thought that their gods needed fresh human blood to be happy, and so
they would literally take the heart of people.
Yes, they were just like, and then now you don't see that over there. So things are getting better.
But now, at the same time, in other countries, in some Muslim countries and other countries, they do behead you. Mm-hmm. And then, and then over there in Mexico, the cartel, they have beheaded people.
Yeah, but it's not as accepted
it's
anymore.
It's not a religious thing. They do it out of greed and profit. Mm-hmm. If you don't sell drugs or do what they tell you to do, well, many is beheaded. And if you look at the wall in Assyria, many of the babies and things are getting killed. They might not be beheaded, but the bombs and things is killing kids and women and everybody. So it's worse now than it ever have been. Now, we're not saying that in the past bad things didn't happen, but it's on a greater increase, a greater scale.
That's it. Like I said, that's opposite from everything I've been researching. And it's just so depressing. It's like a very negative way to think of life.
It's good to do research, because we do research, because a lot of times you have to...
Do y'all do research?
Yeah.
Like as Jehovah's Witnesses?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you do research other than the Watchtower publications?
We do research.
Like what?
Well, like you said,
on
history, there's a lot of things that you can find out, on the internet. Going to the public library and doing
Matter of
research.
fact, she was a librarian at that.
Oh, really? Oh, cool. Awesome.
But we do.
You work there right now, or?
No, I retired 3 years ago.
Okay.
But there is so much now, the information that we find out.
Yeah.
And you do research. we don't just take a man's word for it.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot does come out in the Watchtower and Awake magazines. You know, some about technology, how to use it properly, about raising your children properly.
And then, excuse me, they quote things too about what certain scientists had said, and then about what counselors had said about marriage and things like that. So we do research on a lot of things, world technology and all of that, because it benefits us, but it all falls in harmony with what the Bible has to say.
What about like just there's a big news station in Canada right now that they just put out, or they're putting out a documentary today on the Jehovah's Witnesses. Have y'all heard about that?
No.
Apparently there's are you an elder, sir?
No, I'm a ministerial servant,
okay.
but I'm a minister.
Right,
I'm
yeah.
one step behind an elder.
Oh, okay. So just below elder. Okay. The elders have a book called The Shepherding the Flock of God. It talks in there about like what to do, you know, how to shepherd the flock. And there's a 2-witness rule that it's if say somebody's a child comes forward and says, look, you know, brother so and so has been touching me, has hurt me, you know, they said, well, where's your second witness? We need a second witness to go to the authorities. And if they don't have that second witness, then they say, well, we'll leave it in Jehovah's hands. So it's treated as a sin and not a crime. And so many people over the years, over decades, have been coming forward, like saying, I was molested so many years of my childhood and the elders knew, but they didn't go to the police.
Well, that's true. And a lot of churches and a lot of places that wasn't even in the families. Say, for instance, if somebody would come to us and say, well, my father is been molesting us, and we will talk to the father, we look into it, but you see, we can only go so far until we have to turn it over to the policeman, just like if you was to go to the police right now. Say, my child is missing, but you got to wait how long before they would really look into it? They have a period of time, say if they've been gone, how many hours?
Well, see, now they...
Child alert, but they just don't go right into it. I think it's 24 hours. And you'll see a lot of documentaries about different churches, but a lot of the documentaries, there are misconceptions and misrepresent what Jehovah's Witnesses teach. Now, if somebody is molesting their child, they will be disfellowshipped or disassociated from the organization.
But they'll be let back in.
Well,
then the police never find out.
No, what I'm saying, they'll be disfellowshipped from the congregation, and they will go to jail or prison.
But not if you don't go to the police.
Well, see,
we always go to the police.
Well, on that news article, they did an investigation in Australia, especially Australian Royal Commission. They did an investigation. They actually interviewed one of your governing body members, Jeffrey Jackson, and he admitted that they don't go to the police unless there's a second witness.
No, we do go to the police, but you do have to have proof. You just can't. Other words.
Well, yeah, but that's for the police to decide. They're trained in finding that out and doing the investigation, forensics, and everything. Not elders.
True.
Elders are not trained to do that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying this. If somebody comes to us, we'll look into it. But you have to have proof before you call the police and have that person put in jail.
So if a child comes up and says, you know, and is crying, saying, I've been molested, I've been raped, why are you going to look at the child and say, well, where's your proof? You know, you have to give me proof.
We don't do it that way.
Well, apparently it's been happening to thousands of people.
That's not true.
You haven't looked into it, and you're saying it's not true.
Mm-mm.
You haven't looked into it, so it's automatically you're denying something that's all over the news because y'all are not allowed to do research outside the organization.
No, that's not true.
It is. Just see, you're doing it right now. You haven't looked into it.
Yeah, we looked into it.
No, you have not. I just brought it up right now. I haven't seen you look at your phone looking it up.
Why I know what's true or not, my ex-sister-in-law, what happened to her and her sisters. Now, at the time, they wasn't witnesses, but she told me what happened to her. Her father molested her and her two sisters when they was young. And it took time, but he went to prison. And later, when she became a witness, she said that her husband molested her daughter, and it was, they told the elders in the congregation, and they suggested that she needed to go to the police and let them handle it because of the fact, at first her daughters wouldn't say anything. They were scared to say anything. So she turned it over to the police, and what they did was use CPS, the Child Protection Agency, and they had the children examined, and it was true. And he went to prison.
Let me say this.
But this does not say that experience is not everybody's experience.
Here's another example. Here was a case where he was a brother. He molested his daughter, but if the daughter don't come forth and say anything, well, later on she reported it, and guess what happened? He lost his job. He was disfellowshipped from the Christian congregation, and he's in prison right now.
See,
No, we don't tolerate that.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it's happened to. I'm friends with many ex-JWs who have been molested their whole lives and have had to deal with knowing that the elders knew, but just nobody coming to the police about it.
It's up to the legal authorities to take care of.
Well, yeah, exactly.
We're not judges.
But the thing is, if the elders know, they should at least take it straight to the police so the police can deal with it.
Anytime that the elders or me or my wife know something for a fact, we will report it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. But it does go against the Shepherding the Flock book. If you could get your hands on one of those books, page 72, it shows in there that allegations of child sex abuse are swept under the rug unless there's a second witness.
No, we don't practice that.
I never.
Well, look into it because you're saying no without really looking into it.
Yeah, we did.
And it's true. It's absolutely true. Yeah, look up the Australian Royal Commission. The Jehovah's Witnesses were investigated in Australia.
We saw that about Jehovah's Witnesses, but a lot of times people accuse people of something that's not necessarily
So
true.
you think thousands of people are lying?
Well, if you don't have the right information,
they do. They do. They dug into it. They went into the Jehovah's Witnesses their files, and they found that there were 1,008, I think, accused known pedophiles in their congregation that were not reported to the police. And then even in California, the Watchtower was being sued $4,000 a day because they refused to release their pedophile database. They're keeping pedophiles basically protected in order to protect the reputation of the congregation.
They have molested a child. They can never be an elder.
Well, that would be ideal, but that's not what happens, unfortunately. And you can't sit here and deny it because you don't know what's going on in every congregation all around the world. It's happened, and people have come forward. It's been investigated. People have been sued. People have been thrown in jail. Jehovah's Witnesses have been thrown in jail. And it's still hushed all across the board because Jehovah's Witnesses are not allowed to look outside the organization.
That's not true.
It is true.
Okay, well, it's not.
You can deny it without looking into it, but then you'll still have the veil over your eyes.
And we appreciate your honesty.
Okay, well,
thank you so
please
much.
look into it. Australian Royal Commission.
All right.
And jwfacts.com is a really good website.
All right.
Thank you. Come back again sometime.
Okay, I will.
Okay.